Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Calm and Clarity Conversations podcast. This is where we explore the power of stories to transform lives, and we uncover how calm and clarity and focus can create momentum. I'm Dan McPherson. I'm a coach, a speaker, and I firmly believe that people matter most and relationships are everything. I believe that in a world full of noise and uncertainty, that these conversations are a place where we can get into truth and depth and humanity, not just the highlight reel, but the real, the raw journey. And every week we're going to gather here to get inspired, challenged, and most importantly, connected. So, welcome to the conversation. I'm glad you're with us, and let's get started. My first guest, the very first guest, is one of my dear friends, one of the most amazing people that I know on the planet. She is so many things, including an AI specialist, a CEO, a powerful storyteller, a speaker from all over the world, and one of the most heart centered humans I know. And I'll let her tell you more about us in a moment. But first, welcome Le-An Lai Lacaba.
Yay, I'm so grateful and happy to be here. I have so many words that I wanted to say at that 1 second there, and I'm like, oh, okay, one word, okay.
Oh, it's sometimes tough to focus, right? I'm like, oh, it's episode one. I got so many things I want to say, right? And it feels that. But I am so glad that you are here. And to give our audience a sense of who you are, let's start with a very basic question, or at least it can be. When
Mhm.
someone asks you what you do, how do you respond?
Do you want the long version or short version?
You go. I got you.
So I typically I would say that I co-founded basically a virtual assistant agency in the Philippines. I'm also a speaker. I'm an author. I have my little book right there.
Woohoo! I love that.
Uh,
Congratulations.
yeah. I also have my own podcast, a Scale You podcast as well. I am a digital nomad, officially a full digital nomad right now.
Right. So you're in
And
Japan right now, right? You've
mhm,
lived in the
yep,
Philippines, you're in Japan. And why are you in Japan, by the way?
on my
On
honeymoon.
your honeymoon. Congratulations. We're so excited for
Thank
you.
you, thank you.
So
Yeah.
you're a
So
digital nomad. That's a big deal. What does that mean? Some of our audience may not be as aware. A lot of them probably are.
mm. So it's funny because like I can label myself that I've been a digital nomad since I was 15 because I've been working remotely in almost anywhere, but I've always had a base. So I always fly back and forth to Cebu and go somewhere for a month, come back, go somewhere for a month, come back. Um, and I've never really had not a place. So last May, I packed up everything, literally packed up everything, all my 700 something books, um, and put them in storage, which is literally just a closet room in my now husband's place. And we're just kind of traveling day by day and living in Airbnbs and like finding a cheaper place to stay every single time so we can like not worry about where we put our heads. So yeah.
That's wild. What in the world made you do that?
Part of it was he wanted to do it too. He wanted to try it out, which is like
Well,
the
that'd be
best thing ever.
important, right? You better be on the same
Yeah,
page if you're going to not have
yeah,
a place to live for a
yeah.
while.
Part of it, a little bit, and this is a funny part of the story, is our landlord was being a little B word, and raised our rent after I gave them all the postage checks for the year.
Oh,
And I was like,
wow.
this is not gonna fly. So we took it as a sign of like, oh, let's do this after the wedding. So that was partly the one was like we kind of decided we wanted to do it, but we wanted to keep the place. So we had like for all of our stuff, right? And something to go home to versus like when they said like, oh, we're raising your rent after you gave us all the checks already, and I'm like, no, this is not gonna fly, this is not gonna work. So then we
So you
left.
got a little
So
motivation to make it real. That's awesome.
mhm.
Now, you've talked a little bit about what you do, and boy, we could dig into that for quite a while. And I know that we spoke on our previous conversations on the Dreams Are Real podcast and went deep into a good portion of that. I suspect that'll
Mhm.
come up a little bit more, but I have now that that's that out of the way, I would ask you this: Who is Le-An? Like in your head, when you are all by yourself and you think about it, who are you?
Le-An is a nerd. who can't sit still. Uh, always have to be doing something. And Le-An is someone who loves making people feel joy, and not just always just happy, just like having people like feel better, and always like having that little bit of light. um she is an older sister through and through. Every single time I will, even if you're like 30 years older than me, I will still treat you like a younger brother, younger sister, because I want to take care of you. I've done that to you multiple times in the last 6 years of our
You
friendship.
really have.
So yeah, basically nerd who loves to read but also can't sit too still. So if I'm reading, I'm changing positions every like 5 minutes. And then yeah, big sister at heart.
I love that. And I think it's so important that we recognize both, right? We meet so many people and they say, well, what do you do? And we answer that those roles that we play, particularly in the business world. But when
Mm.
we're alone and we think about ourselves, how we identify matters, and it shapes so many of our perspectives. Now, to make sure that those who are listening and are already like, I've got to know more about that lady, and I've got to be able to get her book and do all these other things, what is the single best way for our audience to connect with you so that they can learn more about your world?
Professionally, LinkedIn, mostly because my she told me this the other day, my assistant has scheduled all the way up to August on my content. So we're
Nice.
very, very active there. But like on the personal side right now, I'm growing my personal Instagram, which I'm posting like all that we're doing in Japan, like having fresh sushi yesterday, or like going on a tram up into the mountains. So that's where like all of the Julian is part shows up.
Awesome. We'll make sure to include the links in the post for this as well. And if you haven't checked out her book, do so. There's a lot of good there, and there's a lot of knowledge that you have around AI. I want to move in a moment here into our discussion of calm and clarity because it's really what draws this audience together. There's so much chaos in the world. But I have to ask, we've dug in the past into you wanting to be an author and your relationship with books, but we haven't spent a lot of time talking to you about AI. What made you jump into AI? What role does it play for you, or do you play with it, and where do you see it going? I know that's a big mess of question, but take a couple
Mm.
minutes and share a little bit of your perspective around AI with us.
So I've always been kind of an early adopter. Like I got the very first like iPod when as a because my dad I got into the honor roll, and when I was like 13 or 12, my dad's like, you want anything you want, you can get it because you're top three in the class. And I'm like, I want an
Nice.
iPod. Like iPod, the first like iPod Touch. I've and then finding a remote job at 15 when remote jobs weren't even really a thing. So I've always kind of had that pattern where I'm always like testing something anytime that something is new. So the moment that ChatGPT came out, I've always been already curious about AI. Like I was playing around with not the AI tools that we know now, but like AI tools like online, like generating things,
Right.
playing around with stuff. So when ChatGPT came out, I was like, okay, this is the thing that I want to like nerd out on. I think I spent like the first 2 weeks that ChatGPT came out, I think I spent like 20, 30 hours just playing on it,
Oh, wow.
of just
Okay.
like having it every time that I would have a question, instead of me always, because you know, those who knew me, because I used to say that Google is your best friend. I've turned it into ChatGPT is my best friend. So anytime that I had a thought, like instead of me going into Google for it, I asked ChatGPT. And at that time, it wasn't the best yet. But then since then, I've released like 6 different courses on how to use ChatGPT and AI. I've done almost monthly workshops now on how to use AI for different audiences, different people. I'm doing one for the event that I'm here for tomorrow, I think. Yeah, tomorrow. So I've kind of found a hyperfixation on my ADHD and ran with it, became
Okay.
the expert at it. And in the day to day that I use it, it's still the same. Like anytime that I have a thought or something that I want to build or develop, I ask ChatGPT. One of these days I'll build my own like bot that I'll just actually just talk to it. It's trained on everything. For now, I have a bot that writes my Facebook or LinkedIn posts. I have a bot that helps me write out like our own SOPs in 2XU. I have a bot that helps me plan things out when everything else is too messy in my head, where I will literally just have my phone right next to me. I'll just talk to it. I'm like, okay, thinking this, I'm thinking this, I'm thinking this. Can you categorize and make it make sense for me? And it will. So I've kind of had it as a kind of a buddy, business buddy, but also at the same time like a personal buddy when I'm
That's
wanting to
awesome.
a few things out.
I,
So yeah.
I love how integrated it is, but when you describe it, it doesn't feel scary. And I know a lot of people, AI is exciting and encouraging and supportive, but I would maybe argue that the majority of people who think about AI gain anxiety. In fact, they lose calm
Mhm.
when thinking about it. Do you have concerns about where AI is going, or do you stay on the excitement piece of that?
So I do go on both sides, mostly because like as an AA consultant for a lot of our clients, the main thing that I want to make sure is they don't lose their voice. And that's the biggest thing is like um, there was a point and I made a funny post about it where everyone was using the word empowered on all of their Facebook posts.
Hmm.
They were using like there were certain words that were so obvious that it was generated by AI.
Right,
It was just like, hey, this is our company's voice. This is what we represent. So that is on one end, like especially as a content creator, I'm very careful about um is training AI or having making sure that AI or using AI doesn't lose or make you lose your voice or who you are. Like it's the biggest thing where you're not going to be replaced by AI, but you're going to be replaced by people who are critical thinkers and know how to use AI. Because I think that that'll be the skill that will people will lose, but at the same time would be very valuable is that critical
right.
thinking skill. So like
That
knowing,
differentiation, right? And
yeah,
I think
knowing
it's
how to like parse and edit.
at any change that we've seen throughout society, those who are able to
Mm,
adapt and differentiate and leverage that tend to be able to get ahead. And
yeah.
a cool thing I saw from you, and as we step forward in this, but a cool thing I saw in your world recently was, if I'm correct, OpenAI themselves shared one of your posts. Is that right? Or
Yeah,
reposted?
that was cool. Yeah, they reposted one of my videos on like basically how to use ChatGPT for business. So
That
yeah, that
was
was
so
pretty cool.
cool. So
Mhm.
I felt like I felt like I could feel you smiling all the way over across the world. That was awesome. Now, two of the biggest struggles that I see people dealing with right now, and it's really the foundation of this podcast, the reason that we are here with so much chaos in the world, is a lack of calm or not having clarity about the next steps that they should take, whether it's in life or business or whatever, or maybe even the next hour, I guess. It really depends on where that fits. Are you seeing the same thing?
Just general like lack of calm.
Yeah, well, or like, do you see people struggling with either a lack of calm or a lack of clarity, like that's a fight that they're fighting?
I think with how noisy everything is, it's easy to get into that spiral. Like it's you see, especially like in the world of AI, where like, oh, this new tool came out, like, oh, this new hack came out, like, oh, you can use AI for this, or you can use it for your business for that. It's so easy to get wrapped up in the like, oh, this is the new thing that where everyone is now focused on, but like really not really a lot of people are focused on it. And at the same time, um, it's okay. So I
Right.
do see and recognize that kind of clawing for clarity that a lot of people are trying to do.
That makes sense. When you think about calm, so now we'll pull it out of AI and everything else, but just as you think about it, and you and I have had lots of conversations about calm for sure, what does calm look like or feel like to you?
My favorite funny answer is when I can read and finish my book with no texts. There's no chats or meetings. That's my like in my head, that's my calm. Like I don't have to think about five different things as I'm trying to get into this really, really good books about dragons. I could just like get into it versus like, oh no, I know when I'm not calm when I look at my Kindle streak and I haven't read in a few days. I'm like, oh,
Mm,
that's a sign. That's an indicator. So for me, that's always been kind of the funny thing of like, oh, I'm in flow when I can read my book consistently, because I know things are running to the point where I can turn my brain off and go into fantasy world. So yeah.
When you can nerd out without the anxiety buttons being pushed, then that's the
Mhm.
space of calm. That's a
Yeah.
beautiful piece. What is a time that maybe you've been proud that you stayed calm, and what difference did it make? I know we all have times where we haven't, but where's one where you're like, I did it. I was calm.
I've had a ton of I've had a ton of moments of like that in the last like even the last year. And I always make the joke that I am a kind of a different person since my frontal lobe developed. Well, you met me when I was 23. I'm now 29. So like there's a stark difference between that 23-year-old girl who was like anxious about everything versus where I'm at now. And like different funny examples are like one like coming here to Japan. We got on the wrong train technically. But in my head, I was like, I can keep calm and look at the Google Maps and check if this is the right train. Like, oh, it's the right train. Like, okay, it's fine. And there's been parts like that in the business too, where like really good example is like we had a client who basically their business was funded by federal funding. So the moment that it was closed in February, we were like, well, we have to figure out like what to do and how to take care of him and his EA in the best way. And like later on, he was able to come back and like work with his EA. It was just like, yay. But in my head, I was like, no, it'll work out. Like it was just a tiny voice of like, it'll work out. Just trust in it. And it did. So there's been multiple areas and parts of my life that I've thank God that I've developed my frontal lobe for it to be able to be keeping calm. Plus, I hear Dan's voice of like, oh no, this is okay. I'm like, okay.
Oh, I see people when they say they can hear my voice, that can go a lot of different directions. So I'm glad that one goes the
You're
good
my
way.
calm voice. You're like, it's gonna be okay. I'm like,
That's
okay.
good. I'm glad for that part. When you think back in your life, where was maybe the hardest spot it was for you to either stay or get to a place of calm? Like what's that moment where you go, calm felt almost impossible?
Got a ton of those too. As a serial overthinker and anxious person. Um, so it's usually when things get too haywire or they pile up basically. Um, like in the line of work that I'm in, it's outsourcing. It's even though it's outsourcing and it can kind of feel very impersonal a lot of times, the way that I do it is very personal. Like we match the right client with the right EA, we build their system. So it's always like very bespoke to every single thing that we do. So every single time that we lose a client or an EA leaves, it's very much a loud thing in my head of like, oh, now we have to find the right person for this person. So then when those things pile up, not just with like the clients or the EAs or something else happens or like this has to be taken care of now, that those times my brain just feels so noisy that I can't sometimes it'll be hard for me to fall asleep.
Mm.
Even if I'm watching like my favorite show of all time, my brain is still working out the kinks of like, okay, how can I solve this, how can I make this better? So there's been a lot of those times.
Yeah, and that's the time when you can look at that Kindle streak and go, darn it,
Yep.
didn't get that either. Well,
Mm-hmm.
with that, with all that you've been through, what works now to help you either get calmer or stay calm? Like, what are the strategies that you use?
One, and it's funny because it works, is literally just going outside. Just to even just a small walk because I will have, and I remember when I was like a little, well, not really a little depressed. When I was chronically depressed, I wouldn't go out at all, especially
Mm,
during the pandemic where you can't go out at all.
right.
It was such a thing where I would notice I haven't left the house in 5 days. And I would just
Oh,
be in my room for those 5 days. I'm like, that's a sign. So for me, going outside and finding, I forget which video I was watching about this, but like if you want your brain to expand, you want to feel the feeling of awe. So feeling like, oh my God, that's so cool. So that's the first thing I always go to is just like going outside of like,
mm,
okay, I'm bigger than the space, the four walls that I was just in.
right.
That's kind of the first thing. Other than that, getting a cuddle, getting a hug from someone else. It doesn't have to be just my husband. When I'm home, my sister's like hug, like we're all huggers in the family.
Nice.
Um, just getting some sort of like again that feeling of getting out of my own kind of skin of like, oh, it's not just all in my head. I can think outside of this. So those are my two main ones.
I love that. It is so important to have those pieces. And in fact, when I think so many that are listening and watching are they're feeling anxious. They're feeling unsettled. There's a lot going on in the world, and here in the US, it feels like the news has been crazy chaos every single day.
Mhm.
What advice would you give to them, or what tip would you give to them about becoming more calm, or about just it probably feels overwhelming, right? To get out of overwhelm, what would you suggest?
As a writer, write. Like that's when the walk doesn't work, when the hug doesn't work, that's my third thing is like I write.
Okay.
Um, and it's funny because like in the digital world, I do toss around between like just typing it out or actually like going on pen and paper, writing it down. Because a lot of the time when you can't find calm, it's mostly, and you taught me this, it's mostly because you're not clear about something. You don't know what to focus on. So when you write it out, when you just put a timer on your phone for 10 minutes and just write it all out, at least you're getting to the point where you're putting your thoughts into an actual pen and paper or iPad or typing it out. Um, and you're kind of finding and letting yourself also find that clarity and calm for you.
Sometimes getting that out of you also can matter,
Mm-hmm.
right? As opposed to letting it
Yeah.
stay and stir
Yeah.
and be suppressed. One of the things, and you touched on it in terms of getting clearer, we'll move into clarity here as we do, but one of the things that I say frequently is that vague is overwhelming and specific is achievable.
That's my favorite thing for me. I should put that on a shirt or something. It is
We'll
overwhelming.
have to
Yeah.
work on that. That could be the merch.
Yeah.
If you guys are listening to this, you think you need vague is overwhelming, specific is achievable on a shirt, let us know. We'll make one. The that is such an important understanding is that if you're feeling overwhelmed, in my experience, something is vague. You ask what
Yeah.
feels vague to me, and now
Mm-hmm.
I can step out and make that a little clearer, and I'll naturally feel a little calmer. And we know that calm, clarity, and focus in that order is the only path to true momentum. So now that we've answered some questions around calm, let's talk about clarity. When I say that word, when I say clarity, what does that mean to you?
It basically means that I know what my next step is. Is kind of the easiest way that I can describe that. It's like I know if I close my eyes, I know which side of the room I'm supposed to go. Like that's what clarity is for me. It's like I can close my eyes and know where the bathroom is, and close my eyes and go know where the exit is. I close my eyes and know where the windows are. So it's that moment of like, oh, I know what I'm supposed to do next. I might not know exactly what's gonna happen, but I know what I'm supposed to do.
I resonate with that so strongly. Right? Clarity is when I speak to most people, clarity isn't necessarily about long-term goals. It can be. It's important to know where, as we've talked about, your North Star is, what you're aiming, what you're all about.
Mm-hmm.
But it's at least as, and I would argue maybe more important to know what am I supposed to do next, right? What is that next step I'm supposed to take? When you think about clarity, can you think of a situation where a lack of clarity made things more challenging for you?
Oh yeah. Um,
She's
not
like, can I?
knowing
The list just goes.
not knowing which train to get on.
Right, right. That would be relevant, right?
Yeah. Um, it's funny because like that's and I think I've kind of gotten to the point where I just accept that that's part of life is like it won't always have all the answers for you. Um, it won't always, but then you got to get to the point where you trust yourself to take that next step. Again, knowing what the next step is, you don't know what's going to happen, but you know what that next step is going to be really important because then um it's also learning how to trust yourself that you can handle whatever does come up from that.
Mm.
So it's a thing to weigh for sure. Um, yeah, let's kind of when you ask that question, like that's it has up in my life the way that I take so many risks, the way that I've lived my life where it's so there's a stark difference again between the girl that you met and the woman that I've become now. There's been so many times where not having clarity ripped me apart. At the same
Mm.
time, I had to just really learn how to find it so that I can take that next step, even though I'm doing it a little bit blindfolded. And that makes sense.
I think that's beautiful, and I think the young lady that you were and the woman that you are both remarkable. And to
No.
watch your journey, to be a part of that, to witness it, has been an honor, absolutely. And to see you grow and shine, but also to gain, I would say, a presence about you. You had a wishfulness and a hope about you when we met, and also maybe a little bit of frenetic energy, right? And that might
Little
still be there a
insanity.
little bit, right?
Yeah.
But now you carry a presence when you walk into a room or a space, and it's not that you have to. It's that that's just who you are, and it's beautiful to see that. I really would almost describe it as a sense of calm and clarity that leads the way for you. What's the best way that you've found so far to be able to gain clarity?
Part of it is talking to mentors like you. Because a lot of the time, especially in the journey of learning how to trust myself, like I'm a recovering people pleaser. I still sometimes will default to listening to what other people would say. But like for me, it's now turned into a point where I just need a little bit of validation that I'm on the right track. So like mentors like you, like my business partner Tom, or even Garrick, like having people that I can go back and forth and say like, oh, I'm thinking of this, but I don't have the full picture yet. Like, can I workshop this with you? Can I talk to you about this? That helps me a lot because then I'm not in my own head. I'm not overthinking too many things at once. And then the other side of it is also then going back into my own like past of like, okay, what has worked, what hasn't worked, why did it work, and why did it not work? So it's a little bit of going through a little bit of the past of like going through people that I know and like going through my own past, but it's also then the next step that I do is looking at the future of like, what do I want? Do I actually want clarity on this? This is actually aligned to the next thing that I want to do. This is aligned to the person that I want to become. So that next step, like it's first like validation of like, okay, this is a little bit of what I want. And then it's like, do I really want this in the first place? Like, is this
Mm.
something that's just, am I just looking at sunk costs of like things that I've already done? That's why I'm making this decision. Or is this the version of Le-An to move forward with? So I see it both sides because it then helps me like, okay, now I know which side or which path to go on next.
When you think about all of these people who could be watching this, who are watching you and going, oh my gosh, she's so far along the journey, or she's really just got it together. And in many ways, you do, right?
Mm.
What advice would you give them if they're sincerely speaking, seeking clarity in their lives, but they're sitting here going, yeah, I'm not that far along in the journey? Where should they start?
You taught me this. Be better at asking questions. Um, that I forget when you taught me that, but like that part of me, since you said that, I'm like, oh yeah, I should be what because staying curious is one thing. And I always that's the first thing I always tell people is like stay curious. But the other one is you need to learn how to ask better questions because it's gonna be so hard. Kind of like if you're talking to ChatGPT and you ask it like, hey, can you create a Facebook post for me? And it just creates you a Facebook post without like context. It's the same thing about asking better questions or prompting better of like, hey, can you create a Facebook post? This is what happened. I don't know how to put it into actual perfect words yet. Can you give it back to me? And it's the same thing every single time. It's like, then I get a very dramatic post or a very happy post, and I'll ask, Chat GPT, make this witty, make this funny, make this, a a wisecracking joke, something somewhere in there. So when you get that point where you can ask better questions, when you can also basically seek better, like be better at like finding things, I think that that'll be the easiest way that you can kind of get to that point of like, oh, now I know what my next thing is, to that next thing.
And strangely enough, that takes away the vagueness and adds some specificity, right? I
Mm-hmm.
do believe, as you well know, curiosity is the number one skill in the world. Ask more and better questions. The better you do that,
Mm-hmm.
the better your life will be. But boy, do we judge that poorly of how good we are at it. I know the first time that was brought to me as a concern, I thought I was amazing at it, and it was literally given to me as a weakness on a review. Talk about a lack of self-awareness. And it took me maybe 3 months before I finally accepted that it could possibly be accurate.
Mm-hmm.
When now I would just start asking questions about, tell me about that, help me understand. And I have sought to be more curious and to treat that as a craft. And I think that's a lot of the reason that I even love doing podcasts and having conversations like this because it gives me a chance to explore and to learn
Mhm.
about incredible people. Curiosity leads you forward.
Yep.
Curiosity is often the light that leads you forward.
Hmm.
As
Exactly.
I know that I know that there are so many things that you are in the middle of, that you are doing, that you are aiming at. But if you look all the way out, I mean, way out, 20 years from now,
Mm-hmm.
what do you hope that others will answer when they're asked to describe your legacy? When they say, "Oh, I knew Le-An," and they get asked, "Tell us about her legacy. Tell us about Le-An." What do you want them to say?
Such a good question. I never thought of it in that point of view. One would be through Le-An, I knew what my next step could be. Um, which is why 5 years later, I'm still posting weekly content on YouTube. Even though at a certain point I could just pause and stop doing that. It's why at a certain point, I didn't have to write a whole book. I'm like, how do I hire an assistant and use AI with it? But like I did. So if I leave anything in the world, it's just oh, I know what my next step is. Like, oh, it's why for the last, I don't know how long anymore, I've always said at the very end of my videos, every single video that I've done on YouTube is like small steps matters. Like I knew what my next small step is because of Le-An. Like I could probably make a compilation all the way from I was 23 all the way to like my recent video of me just saying all of that. And see, you can see the change in my face, the change in my hair. I had like red hair, purple hair, blue hair at different points. But I've always said that it's like small steps matters. So if I could leave anything 20, 30 years from now, it's just that of like, oh, because of Le-An, I was able to know what my next step is and take that next step. That's the thing I do want to leave in the world.
Mm, that's beautiful. And lastly, if our audience were to take any one message from our conversation, what would you want it to be?
Ooh. Everything will be messy. And that's kind of the like I'm having to really learn that as also a recovering control freak, as someone who does want to make sure everything is calm and good, is that things will be messy and things can be messy. But as you've taught me over the years, calm and clarity starts with yourself. So like you can't control what the next person does, but you can control how you react to it, how you find the calm and clarity to move yourself forward. It's the ultimate self-responsibility lesson of like anything and everything that you do in life, whether that's AI, whether that's starting a business, starting a new job, or doing anything in life, it has to start with you. Of what do you want to have, or what do you want to take away from this, what do you want to take away from that? That's still up to you. Now for a lot of people, they just do it so like subconscious, like, oh, I don't even have to think about it. But if you want to have a life where you are intentional about it, you're not just letting it, pass through you. You have to keep that in mind, that it starts with you, how you want to see this, how you want to take it away, and then how you want to do the next thing. So I think that's the main one. It just starts with you.
That is incredible and beautifully put. And I think it's probably a good space for us to wrap up. I'm so grateful to have you here for episode one. I know we'll have you back in the future. And to our audience, thank you so much for joining us. If this conversation has resonated with you, please take a moment to subscribe, share, or tag someone else who needs this. And I look very much forward to seeing all of you again next week. Until then, as I will always share with you, be well, breathe well, and continue to shine.